The shocking truth behind my mother-in-law's smile. What would you do if you realized the drink in your hand was poisoned? And worse, if the person handing it to you was supposed to be family. That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Julian Mercer. I'm 32 and this is the story of how my mother-in-law tried to take me out at a family dinner and how that single moment pulled back the curtain on years of lies, manipulation, and control. Now, if you're watching this, I want you to stay with me until the very end, because what started as a single spiked drink turned into a battle for my marriage, my identity, and my future, and I promise you, the ending is not what you think. Before we get to the night of the poisoned glass, you need to know who I am and why my in-laws despised me enough to risk everything. I'm an independent photographer based in Asheville, North Carolina. If you've ever seen those glossy spreads of bison trudging through snow in National Geographic, or wedding photos where the light seems almost magical, that's the kind of work I do. I built this career from nothing. No family connections, no trust fund, just a second-hand camera, endless 16-hour days, and the stubborn refusal to quit. But in the world of my in-laws, Diane and Gerald photography wasn't a career, it was a hobby. Imagine showing up to Sunday dinner, exhausted from a week of editing, printing, delivering projects, only to hear how's the little photography hobby coming along. That was Gerald, my father-in-law. He's an investment banker, the type who measures success in square footage, retirement accounts, and the car you drive. For him, my entire existence was a joke. And Diane, my mother-in-law, wasn't much better. She would smile to my face, praise my photos, then quietly ask my wife, Haley, when I was going to get something stable. The word stable came out of her mouth like she was spitting out a piece of bad fruit. Haley. She's the reason I endured all of it. We met 6 years ago at an art exhibition. My work was featured on a small wall prints of mountain landscapes, shot during a road trip where I slept in my car because I couldn't afford motels. She was finishing her master's in environmental science. She walked up to one of my photos, a hawk perched against the glow of sunset, and whispered, "This feels alive." That was it. We clicked. Passion met passion. She loved protecting nature. I loved capturing it. Our bond was immediate, magnetic, undeniable. But with her came her parents. And with her parents came judgment, resistance, and eventually danger. Let me paint you a picture of Sunday dinners at Diane and Gerald's house. A grand colonial-style home in the upscale part of town. A table set with silverware so polished you could see your face. Diane fussing over the floral arrangements. Gerald bragging about his latest financial deal. And me, I was the odd one out. The outsider. Haley would squeeze my hand under the table. Her silent way of saying, "I'm sorry, I see what they're doing." But even with her support, it was draining. Every dinner felt like an interrogation, an exam I was doomed to fail. Looking back, I realized the dinner where Diane spiked my drink wasn't random. It was part of a much larger pattern, a pattern of control. They didn't just dislike me, they wanted to erase me. I overheard Diane once, on the phone, saying Haley could have married Thomas, orthopedic surgeon, family money, but she chose the creative one. The way she said creative, it was like she meant contagious disease. And Gerald, when Haley and I announced we wanted kids, he pulled me aside and said, "Children are expensive. Son, maybe think about a real job first." The subtext was always the same. "You're not good enough for our daughter. You'll never be enough." Now, let's get to the dinner that changed everything. It was Diane's birthday. I had just come back from a brutal assignment in Montana, knee-deep snow, chasing bison for National Geographic. My face was wind-burned, my body exhausted, but Haley insisted we couldn't miss it. "Just a couple hours," she said, "for Mom." So I put on a button-down, grabbed a bottle of decent wine, and walked into that house with a knot already forming in my stomach. At first, everything felt normal. Gerald boasted about closing some deal. Diane rearranged the table settings for the 5th time. Haley's brother and his wife made small talk. Then came dessert. Diane announced she had made her famous sangria. She disappeared into the kitchen, and I offered to help carry glasses. That's when I saw it. She had two glasses separate from the others, and in one of them, she poured something from a tiny vial, colorless, odorless, quick, like she'd done it before. Her hand trembled as she tucked the vial back into her apron. When she noticed me standing there, she froze. Then, with a forced smile, she said, "Oh, Julian, this one's for you. A special recipe. For my favorite son-in-law." My throat tightened. My instincts screamed. I picked up both glasses and carried them into the dining room. And when I set them down, I made sure the glass Diane had spiked landed right in front of Gerald. He didn't even notice, just picked it up, distracted by his phone, and drank. 45 minutes later, Gerald was pale, sweating, and rushing to the bathroom. The sound of his retching echoed down the hall. Diane's face turned the color of paper when she realized what had happened. And in that moment, across the dinner table, our eyes locked. I knew. She knew. And I knew she knew that I knew. But I didn't say a word. I just sat there, eating chocolate cake, while chaos unfolded around me. Let me pause here for a second. People sometimes ask, how did you know? How were you so sure? The truth is, I didn't know in the scientific sense, but my gut screamed. And here's something I want you to take from this. Listen to that voice inside. We often dismiss instincts as paranoia, but instincts are our brain's way of connecting dots we haven't consciously processed yet. Tiny microsignals, the shake of a hand, the shift in someone's tone, the sudden stillness of a room. I can't count the number of people who've told me later, after some betrayal, I felt something was off, but I ignored it. Don't ignore it. That knot in my stomach, it saved me that night. Later that night, while Haley helped her father and Diane stammered about bad shellfish, I quietly pocketed the untouched glass that was meant for me. I didn't confront her, didn't shout, didn't accuse, because something inside me shifted. I realized this wasn't about one poisoned drink. This was war. Not the kind fought with fists or screaming matches, but with patience, with evidence, with truth. And if Diane thought she could poison me out of her daughter's life, she had no idea who she was dealing with. That night, after Gerald's food poisoning episode, I lay awake beside Haley. She was exhausted from taking care of her father, still half convinced it was bad shellfish. But me, I couldn't close my eyes. The untouched glass, the one meant for me, sat wrapped in a napkin inside my jacket pocket. I kept replaying Diane's face over and over in my mind. The quick flash of panic, the way her voice pitched just a little too high when she said it was a special recipe. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't imagination. Something was in that drink, and if I wanted to protect myself, and more importantly, protect Haley, I needed proof. The next morning, I made a call. Jason, a former client of mine. He ran a toxicology lab, one of those sterile, fluorescent lit places where everything smells faintly of bleach and seriousness. When I explained I had a family matter and needed a drink tested, he didn't ask questions. He just said, "Drop it off. I'll have results in a few days." Handing over that glass felt like sliding evidence across a detective's desk. My palms were sweating, my heart pounding. And then came the waiting, 3 of the longest days of my life. Before I tell you what Jason found, let me pause. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you suspect foul play, whether it's something as extreme as poisoning, or as common as workplace sabotage, document everything. Feelings and suspicions can be dismissed. But evidence changes everything. It doesn't matter if it's screenshots of text, saved voicemails, or a wine glass in a Ziploc bag. Evidence takes power away from manipulators and gives it back to you. That's what I was doing, even if I didn't fully realize it yet. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was building a case. 3 days later, Jason called. His voice was calm, professional, but there was a sharp edge underneath. Julian, that glass contained benzodiazepines. Nothing lethal, but enough to knock you out for hours. Cause disorientation, maybe even memory loss. I remember gripping the phone tighter, my knuckles white. This wasn't my imagination. Diane had actually drugged my drink. Jason hesitated before asking, "Where did you get this?" I could have told him everything. That my mother-in-law had tried to spike me at dinner. That my father-in-law drank it instead. That my wife had no idea. But instead, I just said family matter and hung up. Because here's the thing, knowing the truth is one thing. Deciding what to do with it is another. That night, Haley suggested we go to her parents' house for Sunday dinner. Like always, I told her I needed a break, that I had to focus on an upcoming exhibition. She looked disappointed, but didn't push. What I didn't tell her was that I had a toxicology report tucked into my desk drawer, that her mother had tried to drug me, that her father had been the unlucky stand-in. I wasn't ready to shatter her world yet, not until I had the full picture. Because deep down, I sensed this was bigger than one dinner. Over the next 2 weeks, I became part husband, part detective. I started small. Medical records, prescriptions. It turned out Diane had been prescribed Xanax by not one, not two, but 3 different doctors. And she wasn't taking the pills as prescribed. She was doubling, even tripling doses. The more I dug, the darker it got. There were rumors in town. Stories whispered at the country club. Diane pocketing jewelry from a neighbor's party. Erratic behavior at social events. Things her family had worked hard to sweep under the rug. And suddenly, all those little slights and comments over the years made sense. The way she'd conveniently call Haley into the kitchen whenever I mentioned a successful project. The way she forgot to include me in family photos. This wasn't random. This was systematic. What I discovered during those 2 weeks is something I think a lot of people can relate to, maybe not the poisoning part, but the manipulation. Toxic people don't just act out once. They build patterns. At first, it's subtle, a backhanded compliment, a joke that cuts too deep, an invitation where your name is left off the list. But over time, those small cuts add up. They isolate you. They convince others you don't belong. That's exactly what Diane and Gerald had been doing to me. And to Haley for years. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I called Haley's old college roommate, Bethany. I asked her about Thomas, the fiancé Haley had before me. A name Diane had once dropped with venom. Bethany's voice on the phone was heavy. Oh God, that was awful. He was perfect for her. But her parents, they convinced her he was cheating. They planted evidence. Haley broke it off in tears. I felt a chill run down my spine. It wasn't just me. This wasn't their first time sabotaging Haley's happiness. They had a system. During those 2 weeks, I said nothing to Haley. I kissed her good morning, cooked her dinner, listened to her talk about work, and all the while, I carried the weight of knowledge she didn't have. Some people might say I should have told her right away. Maybe they're right. But here's my reasoning when you expose a manipulator. You can't go in half prepared. They will deny. They will gaslight. They will twist every fact. So I stayed silent. Because I didn't just want to tell Haley the truth. I wanted to show her. And then, one Saturday, the perfect opportunity fell into my lap. Haley came into the studio, holding her phone. A confused look on her face. Mom wants new photos for her social media. She asked if you'd take them. I froze. Diane, the woman who had tried to poison me, now wanted me in her house, with my camera. It felt like a trap, but it also felt like a chance. So I agreed. That Saturday, I drove to their house alone, camera bag in one hand, a sealed envelope in the other. Inside the envelope was the toxicology report. Copies of Diane's prescriptions, rumors I'd compiled. Diane greeted me at the door, dressed to perfection, makeup flawless. She smiled like nothing had ever happened. But before we even set up, I handed her the envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Her eyes flicked over the report. The prescriptions. This is absurd, she whispered. I would never. I cut her off. We both know what happened. Her mask slipped, her face hardened. You're not good enough for my daughter. You never will be. A man should provide security, not pictures. I stayed calm. And drugging your daughter's husband, that provides security. She snapped. It wasn't going to kill you, just make you sick, make you miss that ridiculous gallery opening, show Haley you're unreliable. I let the words hang in the air. The truth exposed, raw and ugly. And then I said quietly, here's what happens next. You tell Gerald what you did, and you both start treating me with respect. Not because you've changed, but because if you don't, Haley will find out. Her laugh was hollow. She'd never believe you over us. I picked up my camera bag. She'll believe the lab report, the prescriptions, the neighbors. Are you willing to bet your relationship with your daughter on that and with that? I walked out. After that tense confrontation in her living room, I thought maybe Diane would back off. Maybe the reality of me having proof would scare her into silence. But I underestimated her. That night, she called Haley in tears. According to her, I had behaved inappropriately during our photo session. She claimed I was hostile, that I yelled, that I threatened her. And when Haley confronted me later, her eyes were wide, her voice trembling. Julian, what happened? Mom said I cut her off. I couldn't let Diane write the narrative. So I told her the truth. I showed Haley the toxicology report, the prescriptions, even the hostile texts Diane had sent me over the years, the ones I had saved but never shared. Haley stared at the evidence, but her voice cracked when she whispered, my mother wouldn't do this. It wasn't that she didn't see the truth. It was that she couldn't let herself believe it. This is what manipulators do best. They don't just lie, they make you doubt your own reality. Diane knew that if she cried hard enough, if she played the victim convincingly, Haley would feel torn. Children don't want to see their parents as villains. It goes against every instinct of family loyalty. And so, even with evidence in her hands, Haley struggled to accept what was right in front of her. That's the terrifying power of gaslighting. For 2 weeks, Haley barely spoke to me. She went to her parents' house alone, came back with red eyes, avoided my gaze. I threw myself into work, spending long nights in my studio, editing photos until my eyes burned. And every time the silence stretched between us, I felt the trap closing tighter. Diane and Gerald weren't just trying to poison me physically. They were poisoning my marriage, drip by drip. Then, one evening, a plain package arrived at my doorstep. No return address, just my name scrawled across the top. Inside was a USB drive and a note. You should see this. Vanessa, Haley's sister-in-law, married to her brother, Owen. My pulse quickened as I plugged the drive into my laptop, and what I saw made my stomach drop. The first video file showed the night of the dinner. Timestamped security footage from Gerald and Diane's house. There was Diane in the kitchen, clearly tipping something from a vial into a glass. There was me, entering moments later, taking both glasses. There was Gerald, drinking the one meant for me. Proof, undeniable proof. But that wasn't all. The next clip showed Diane screaming at Gerald after we left. You weren't supposed to drink that one. Gerald, pale and furious, shouted back, this isn't the first time you've pulled something like this. My heart pounded as I watched them unravel on screen. And then, the most damning file of all. 2 days later, Diane and Gerald in their living room, discussing me. Gerald, he knows what you did. Diane, so what? It's his word against mine. Haley will never choose him over family. Gerald, and if she does Diane, then she's not the daughter I raised. Don't worry. I've already started talking to her about their marriage problems, planting seeds. By the time I'm done, she'll be filing for divorce and thinking it was her idea. I sat back in my chair, shaking. This wasn't just malice. This was a campaign. A calculated plan to destroy my marriage from the inside out. I called Vanessa immediately. Her voice was quiet, cautious. I couldn't watch them do it to you. Not again. I asked what she meant. And then she told me when I married Owen, they tried the same thing. Said I wasn't good enough. For 2 years, they chipped away at us. It almost worked. I never told Owen. He worships his father, believes every word, but I couldn't sit by and watch them tear apart another marriage. I thanked her, my mind racing. Now I had not just evidence, but an ally. The next day, I got a text from Gerald. We should talk. Man to man, no wives. He suggested his country club. A private room, dim lighting, whiskey in cut crystal glasses. He started smoothly, like a salesman. Families are complicated. Julianne, my wife, she can be protective, but she means well. I cut him off. Drugging someone means well. He waved a hand, dismissive. A misunderstanding. Diane takes medication for anxiety. She probably mixed up the glasses. I stared him down. I have the security footage. Gerald. That's when his mask slipped. His voice turned cold. Calculating. What do you want? Money, is that what this is about? I always knew you married Haley for financial reasons. I leaned forward. I want you both to leave us alone. Stop trying to convince Haley I'm not good enough. Stop interfering in our marriage. He smirked. You think you're the first man we've dealt with? Haley will always come back home. Ask her about Thomas. Ask her about the fiancé before you. My blood ran cold. On the drive home, I couldn't shake Gerald's words. So I called Bethany again, Haley's old roommate. She confirmed what Gerald had implied. Haley had been engaged before, to Thomas, and her parents had orchestrated the breakup, planting fake evidence of cheating, feeding her doubts until she walked away from someone she loved. History was repeating itself, and I was the next target. From that point forward, I went all in. I reached out to Thomas, who reluctantly sent me old emails showing how Diane and Gerald had sabotaged their relationship. I contacted old friends of Haley's who had mysteriously drifted away. Many of them admitted that after spending time with her parents, they were subtly pushed out of her life. Vanessa supplied more footage, clips of Gerald and Diane discussing their plans for us. In one, Gerald said once they divorce, we'll convince her to move back home. She can run the foundation, meet suitable men, piece by piece. The puzzle came together. This wasn't about me personally. This was about control, about owning Haley's life and anyone connected to it. Finally, I knew what I had to do. I invited Owen and Vanessa over for dinner. Haley thought it was just family bonding. She had no idea what I had planned. After dessert, I connected my laptop to the TV. There's something you both need to see. For the next hour, we watched the poisoning, the arguments, the manipulations. Haley sat frozen, tears streaking her face. Owen muttered over and over, "That's not my parents. That's not them." But when Vanessa put her hand on his arm and said, "They did it to me too," Owen, he went silent. The truth was undeniable. This is why I waited. Because sometimes telling someone the truth isn't enough. When lies have been woven into the fabric of their life, they need to see it, to feel it, to confront the evidence with their own eyes. That night, Haley did, and even though it broke her heart, it also set her free. Later that night, she crawled into bed beside me. Her voice was soft, trembling. "I need time to process this, but I believe you, and I'm sorry I doubted you." Tears welled in my eyes, relief, anger, exhaustion all at once. Finally, I wasn't fighting alone. The day after Haley finally saw the truth, she received a call from her mother. Diane's voice was cheerful, syrupy sweet, as if nothing had happened. "Darling, I was thinking you should come stay with us for a while. Your father and I are worried. Marriage is hard, and sometimes a little separation gives clarity." Haley's jaw tightened. She put the call on speaker. "Mom." "I've seen the videos." There was a pause. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Diane spoke, her voice dripping with fake concern. Whatever Julian showed you has been manipulated. You know he's always been jealous of our family. But this time, Haley didn't waver. Stop. We're coming over tonight. All of us. No more lies. And just like that, the stage was set. That evening, we drove to Gerald and Diane's house. Owen and Vanessa met us at the door. None of us spoke much. The tension was heavy, pressing down like a storm about to break. Inside, the living room looked picture-perfect, tasteful furniture. Art on the walls. Everything polished. But the air was thick with unease. Gerald tried to set the tone, his voice booming with false authority. I understand there's been a misunderstanding. I set down my camera back. Calm, deliberate. No misunderstanding. We're going to talk about everything. And I'm documenting this for the family archives. I pulled out my tripod, began setting up the camera. Diane's eyes widened. This is private family business. I looked up, meeting her gaze. Exactly. Family business. And I'm family, whether you like it or not. For the next 2 hours, we laid everything out. The poisoned drink, the prescriptions, the security footage, the emails. Gerald denied. Diane cried. Their defenses shifted from outrage to victimhood to outright denial. This is ridiculous, Gerald barked. You're unstable. Julian. Manipulative, Diane sobbed. Each time, I pressed play on another clip, displayed another email, produced another witness statement. With every new piece of evidence, their denials grew weaker, their faces paler. Finally, Haley stood up. Her voice shook, but it carried strength I hadn't seen in weeks. I love you both. You're my parents. But what you've done is unforgivable. You don't get to control my life anymore. Owen, usually quiet, added his voice. We're adults now. We choose our own partners, our own paths. For a moment, neither Gerald nor Diane spoke. The silence felt like a wall breaking. Diane's tears weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of lost control. Gerald just looked stunned, like he couldn't comprehend that his children were finally defying him. As we prepared to leave, I pulled a USB drive from my bag and handed it to Gerald. This contains everything. The footage, the emails, the testimonies. It's yours to keep. He narrowed his eyes. Suspicious. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned in slightly, keeping my voice calm but firm. It means I'm not going to ruin your reputation by sharing it. That would hurt Haley. And I would never do that. But if you ever try to interfere in our marriage again, if you ever try to manipulate Haley or speak against me, copies of this will go to every member of your country club, your business partners, your entire social circle. For the first time since I'd met him, Gerald looked at me not with disdain, but with something close to respect. I underestimated you. I nodded. Yes, you did. In the weeks that followed, everything shifted. Haley and Owen began therapy to untangle the years of damage their parents had caused. Vanessa finally felt heard, and me for the first time. I felt like I wasn't fighting alone. Diane and Gerald kept their distance. They sent occasional texts, polite, restrained. No more backhanded compliments. No more digs. Just silence where their judgment used to be. It wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't forgiveness, but it was peace. And sometimes that's enough. 6 months later, around the holidays, Diane and Gerald invited us all back for dinner. The invitation read, "A fresh start." Haley hesitated. "They're still my parents," she said softly, "and maybe they're trying." So we went. At first, everything seemed normal, too normal. Diane had prepared a feast. Gerald was charming, asking about my latest projects with what sounded like genuine interest. After dinner, Gerald invited me into his study. He poured me a scotch, handed me a glass, and said, "I've been thinking about your career. Photography has been good to you, but have you considered diversifying? I could bring you into my firm. Junior partner track, substantial salary." I didn't take a sip. "Why would you do that?" His smile was smooth. "Practiced because you're family. And I respect how you handled the unpleasantness. You protected my daughter while standing your ground. That's what a real man does. I set the glass down untouched. I appreciate the offer. But no, his smile tightened. Julianne, be reasonable. This is an olive branch, a way for us to move forward. I shook my head. No, it's another attempt at control. You can't buy me, and you can't stand that Haley loves me exactly as I am. His eyes flashed, his voice low and dangerous. Don't be a fool. Everyone has a price. I stood up. That's where you're wrong. And that's why you'll never understand your daughter. When I returned to the dining room, Diane was flipping through old photo albums with Haley. Look at these. She cooed. You were so happy when you lived at home. Haley glanced at me. She must have seen the look on my face, because she stood up and cleared her throat. Mom, Dad, I have something to tell you. Everyone turned to look at her. Her voice was steady. Julian and we're having a baby. I'm 3 months pregnant. The shock on their faces was real, genuine. For the first time, Diane didn't have words. Gerald's mask cracked, and in that silence, I realized something important. They could scheme, manipulate, try to pull every string, but life was moving forward, with or without their approval. Looking back, that night wasn't about winning. It wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries. See, toxic people will always test limits. They'll poke, prod, push until you make it clear where the line is. And once you do, once you enforce it with both words and action, something shifts. It doesn't mean they'll change, but it does mean they'll think twice before crossing you again. And that's a kind of freedom. After that holiday dinner, after Gerald's failed attempt to buy me out and Haley's announcement of our baby, something shifted permanently in the Mercer family dynamic. The tension didn't vanish overnight. Diane and Gerald didn't suddenly become warm, loving parents-in-law. That's not how life works. But the balance of power changed. No more hobby comments, no more digs about money, no more subtle attempts to wedge themselves between me and Haley. It wasn't love. It wasn't even respect in the traditional sense. It was restraint. And for people like them, that was as close to respect as I was ever going to get. In the months that followed, Haley and I focused on us. She started therapy with her brother, Owen, to untangle years of manipulation. Vanessa, finally unburdened, began speaking openly about her own struggles with Diane and Gerald. And me, I poured my energy back into photography. I opened a gallery in Asheville. For the first time, I saw people walk through the doors, stop in front of my work, and feel something. That was success, not in square footage or retirement accounts, but in meaning. And when Haley stood beside me, her hand resting on her growing belly, I knew I had won, not by fighting like them, but by refusing to play their game. To their credit, Diane and Gerald tried in their own way. They sent a deed to a small property, along with a trust fund for the baby, a peace offering, an attempt at legacy. I accepted it, but with clear boundaries. The property wasn't leverage. The trust fund wasn't a leash. They were just gifts. And if they came with strings attached, those strings would be cut. One last story. A few months before the baby was born, Gerald asked to meet again. We sat across from each other in his study. This time, there was no offer of a job, no smirking sales pitch. He just poured himself a drink, stared into the amber liquid, and said quietly, "You know, I always thought I could control everything. Deals, people, even my children. But you surprised me. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. I just said, you don't need to control Haley to protect her. You just need to love her. That's all she's ever wanted." He didn't reply. But for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that looked almost like regret. The day our daughter was born, everything else faded. Diane cried when she held her granddaughter. Gerald softened in a way I'd never seen before. For a while, it was almost peaceful. And though I never forgot what they had done, the poison, the lies, the manipulation, I also realized something important. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living your life. thriving, and refusing to let their darkness steal your light. So what's the lesson here? It's not just about toxic in-laws. It's about anyone in your life who tries to control, manipulate, or diminish you. Here are the truths I carried out of that fire. Trust your instincts. That knot in your stomach, it's not random. It's your body connecting dots your brain hasn't caught up to yet. Don't ignore it. Document everything. Suspicions can be dismissed. Evidence cannot. Screenshots, emails, recordings, they can save you. See the patterns. Manipulation isn't a one-time act, it's a cycle. Once you recognize the pattern, you can break it. Boundaries are freedom. You don't need to win every battle. You just need to set the line and enforce it. Consistently, firmly. Define your own success. Don't let someone else's definition trap you. For Gerald, success was money and status. For me, it was capturing moments and building a family with love. Neither definition was wrong, but only one of them was mine. And in the end, that's what mattered. So if you take one thing from my story, let it be this: you don't need to fight toxic people on their battlefield. You don't need to sink to their level. Stand your ground, live with integrity, build your life your way. Because the best way to win is to stop playing their game altogether. Fade out. A final shot of a camera shutter clicking, freezing a moment in time, a symbol of truth, captured forever.